The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good morning, and welcome to the Rails Online Roundtable. Today's online roundtable is Programming and Collections for Patrons with Dementia and Alzheimer's. I'm Dan Bostrom. I am the Member Engagement Manager for Rails. If you've never heard of Rails Online Roundtable, that's because it has never existed before. This is something new that we're doing. We have so many fantastic networking groups around Rails that are doing awesome things around specific topics or just specific regions. And these groups get together monthly, they get together quarterly to talk about issues in and around libraries. And we here at Rails, we wanted to harness that in some sort of online forum that more people can experience. That's why I'm so excited to be joined today by David and Tina and the rest of the Serving Patrons with Dementia Group. Really appreciate them coming together and creating this for us today. They've been doing some great things for a long time, and we're trying to bring that to more people. So this is kind of how things are going to work today. We have our welcome, which I'm doing. I'll get into just doing a quick Rails news and updates, and then I'm going to turn it over to Tina and David to do a quick presentation and kind of introduce the topic for us. The second half of this is going to be a little bit weird. It's not going to be like you've experienced before. It's not really a webinar because we want to hear from you. We're going to give you a chance to really respond to some of the questions. We've got some prompt questions, and you can also ask some of your own. David and Tina are going to join me to kind of talk through this portion, but it's going to be really about what's happening in your library and in your own service. So at the very end, I'm going to come back and do a quick wrap up, but I'm excited to have you be part of the experience here. Okay, so let's do the quick Rails news and opportunities. I wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't tell you about all the amazing things that are happening around Rails. So here we go. The first one is next week. We have a webinar coming up. It's called Stop Talking and Start Testing, How to Improve Your Website with Usability Testing. The presenter is Brody Austin, the Assistant Director at Northbrook, and he's going to walk participants through the process of identifying testing needs, planning a test, running one, and then summarizing the findings. Registration is still open, so check it out via L2. Next week, we also have a Rails member update. That's on Thursday, and this is 2 hours just of member sharing goodness. We'll do some updates on Rails projects, including Explore More Illinois, our Museum Pass program, Simply E, and our membership standards initiative. We'll also hear from 3 recipients of past Rails multi-type collaborative grants who are doing some interesting things. The best part about this is you can participate in person or online via Rails Live. So registration is available. Make sure to check that out. Also want to mention Rails partnership grants. Speaking of multi-type collaborative grants, they have a new name as of last November. You can apply for up to $5,000 for any new or existing partnership that your library has. Applications are open now, but please note that deadline that's coming up 2 weeks from today. So you really got to hustle to put together an application, but please do apply if you can. And any type of library can apply for these funds. Also, just to note, BiblioBoard, I'm sure a lot of you already know about it. Anyone physically located in the state of Illinois has access to BiblioBoard. It's our free online ebook platform. You just need Wi-Fi and a device. We're really excited about some new collections that are going into BiblioBoard, including graphic novels, open educational resources, and more. And we've also started a Facebook campaign to help libraries promote this service to their own patrons. So check out our Facebook account. We've got some content that can be really easily reshared to libraries across Illinois. I mentioned Explore More Illinois before, and we're super excited about it. We just launched April 1st. It's free for any Illinois library card holder, and if your library isn't already signed up, do check it out. There's some implementation that needs to happen, but the only thing you need to do as staff is to help promote the program to your patrons. We're always looking to add cultural attractions as well, so if you know of art galleries, historical societies, theater companies, whatever, please tell us about it. Please tell them about this amazing product. Okay, so that is the end of my spiel, and I'm going to switch gears here a little bit, and I'm going to turn it over to Tina and David. Tina is the Outreach Services Manager at the White Oak Library, and David Kelsey is the Outreach Services Librarian at the St. Charles Library. So they are the co-conveners of the Serving Patrons with Dementia Group, and I want to give a big welcome to both of them.
Thank you, Dan.
Thank you so much.
And
all right, well, thank you everybody for coming. This is a little different for David and I, as we're used to doing presentations for about an hour. So we're just going to give a really brief overview to turn it over to everybody. So I'm going to start with our first one here that talks about just an overview of what we're doing. So in 2016, we started the networking group with Rails, Serving Patrons with Dementia, and we've also spoke with the Heartland group, and so we try to provide as much information statewide as we can. We started a resources blog so that every time we learn about something, we post it up there. And we're excited because we're about to add at least 10 more resources to that this weekend. So you can simply Google librarians dementia. You know, it's supposed to be kind of a pun and some humor on that, you know, it's not the librarians who have dementia, but if you forget what the blog is, hopefully that'll give you the hint, and it's simple. So the Librarians Dementia is just a simple blog that's out there to help people understand what we're doing, to give them as much information we can, provide resources, and to show just how simple it is to serve this community. When we started, we talked about those two questions. How does this increasing demographic affect the library and the community? And how do we serve this growing population? So those were the two things that we started with, and we touch upon each time. And we get together quarterly, we share information, we share resources, and we talk about the different programs and collections that we have. The next time we're going to be meeting is through the video conferencing system so that, again, we can reach more people, and that's on May 17th. And then we'll be wrapping up our year of quarterly meetings at the St. Charles Library on July 19th. So we have all of our resources, all of our contacts on there for you. So again, you can be able to find information on our blog. If you're looking at the Rails site, one of the networking groups, again, you can just Google Rails Serving Patrons with Dementia, and our page will come up. It has the contact information, it has when we'll be meeting, so that information is available to everybody. The most important thing we found is to get the proper information, your partners will be that vital link. So Alzheimer's Association is willing, ready, and participates in everything that we're doing. They're going to be at the Rails video conferencing and participating with that. They've really upped how much that they want to be involved with everything. So hopefully everyone takes advantage of that resource. We also work with iGuard, who has just become part of the ASG-CLA, and they're working on updating their website. So we're going to post updates with our information. That's ala.org/ASGCLA. And a lot of their links are not working yet, but they're working on that. And they're a national organization that works doing the same things we're doing, and then on a bigger scale. And then we utilize IFLA quite a bit because they have wonderful documentation, especially when it comes to collections, how to talk to people who are going through this, and they're a baseline resource along with our local resources that we have. So we invite you to partner with not only Alzheimer's Association, but in your communities, if you have any local assisted living or memory care facilities, ARP is willing to work with people, and then any other businesses who deal with older adults, that they're more than willing and wanting to be involved in what libraries are doing with this. I'm going to hand it over to David to start talking about our program.
Well, hello, everybody. Thank you again to Rails and to Dan for hosting us today. So one thing we definitely try to highlight in our program, in our meetings, is the wonderful work being done by libraries across Rails and across the state of Illinois in serving patrons with dementia and Alzheimer's disease. So some of the things we always try to focus on programs and services and collections. There's so much great things happening in the state of Illinois to serve a special demographic. And we always try to touch upon programs that help enhance the quality of life, the impact lives, the touch, life enrichment. And of course, our programs we always want to occur in a safe place and a familiar place. And with our programs, it encompasses a large variety of different things, from reading programs and stories and craft and music, and of kits and crafts. There's so much great work, and we're just so honored to showcase it through our meetings. Oh, could you go to the next slide? Thank you. Oops, there we go. So one of the things that we try to showcase is our kits. There are several different types of kits that are occurring in the state of Illinois. One kit you might have heard before is the bifocal kits. And these are kind of the original kits that were created, that were mass produced, that libraries could purchase. And they had props, sing-along activities, music activities, and they were great for libraries to easily purchase. And unfortunately, the founders of bifocal kits retired after about 41 years in the business. So one thing the Serving Patrons with Dementia Group discovered, unfortunately, there are no other places where libraries can easily build kits. So with that in mind, a lot of libraries are starting to build their own kits, such as the Reminisce kits by the White Oak Library District and the Educational Engagement kits at the St. Charles Public Library. And both the Reminisce and Educational Engagement kits are used at facilities and are led with presentations by outreach staff members. There's also the caregiver kits, which the St. Charles Public Library has created. And these are meant for use for caregivers to check out at the library to use with loved ones at their homes. And of course, we have to mention Tales and Travel Memories. And this was founded and created by Mary Beth Reidner, who is the founder and the original chair of the interest group and Alzheimer's and related dementias interest group. And the Tales and Travel Memories, patrons go on imaginary journeys to countries across the world and sometimes states, and incorporates a lot of great themes and folklore. So all the kits are meant to encourage patrons living with memory loss in communities across Illinois and the United States. So equipment and programs. There is a lot of services, equipment and programs used through serving this population. Some libraries are starting up memory cafes, and memory cafes are sometimes at the library and sometimes off-site, where caregivers bring their loved ones living with memory loss to interact and engage, to engage with each other, with the other patrons living with dementia, as well as a place for the caregivers to network and to feel that they are not alone. There's also Time Slips, which is a creative storytelling program, and that is a program was created by a professor in Wisconsin, and patrons, people living with memory loss, develop stories revolving around a theme, such as a person, a place, or the weather. Libraries are also using antique and vintage items to inspire patrons living with memory loss. And there are also a lot of other services, such as using a audio disc player, which is similar to talking to book device, or the fold and stow carrier, which helps prop up materials during programs. So there is so much great work, and we're so honored to showcase this during our programs and our meetings.
Thank you, David. So the last thing that we wanted to just quickly go over and then hand it over to all of you is to talk about collections. Some people have started an area in the library where they have the caregiver kits, or they have something called a memory center or an engagement area. We're used to doing these things for children, and now people have realized that in order to engage people, this very large population we're serving with the different forms of dementia and their caregivers, that we need to speak to them too. So whether it's a full-blown out program and collection or something smaller, having something aside for people is a growing need that we see. Some people are starting off with passive programs and passive displays. That seems to work well to see, is there an interest in my community? The slide that you're seeing is taken directly from IFLA. They have a really good standard that they put out talking about how do you treat our patrons that have dementia. And one of the things they talk about are the collections. So when you're first starting on building the kits, or you're first starting with programming, or you're building your collection, these really come in handy. You know, knowing a theme and something that interests people of any age helps. And when you're talking to someone with dementia, in order to strike a chord, it has to be something that is a topic or theme that they love and they're familiar with. So, and it could come in all different areas. A lot of people who have dementia can still read into many stages of the disease. And so but they encourage them to do that. Listening to read aloud while doing an activity is very good for them too. So I'm not going to go through and read what's on the screen, but any of these things are highly recommended and easy to put together, again, based on themes and subject areas that they would find interesting. All right, Dan, I'm going to hand it back to you.
Okay, thank you so much, Tina. All right, so here we now are at the point where we are going to hear from you all. And at this point, most of the responses are going to come through the text box. So you can actually you can expand your chat box just by clicking. There's an arrow in the right-hand side of it, I'm going to submit a series of questions. They're going to have Q1, Q2, Q3 indications on them to kind of get you to respond. We want to hear what's happening in your library. You know, we purposely kept that presentation, the opening part, short because we want to hear what you're doing. We want to hear your experiences. We want to hear how your library is adapting in these circumstances. So I'm going to start out by submitting the first questions, and you should see it in your chat box. And as we hear your answers, please try to use the A1, A2 responses so that I know what you're responding to. I'll read them to David and Tina, and we'll kind of talk about them and just get a sense of what is happening with you all. So here's the first question. What are the required adaptations, for example, like environment, spacing, flow in the library setting for patrons with dementia? While we are waiting for people to type, and I assume everyone has some busy fingers right now, David and Tina, maybe you can just sort of give a like a response to this question. What you've sort of talked about it a little bit in your presentation, but what are the adaptations that you see libraries doing in this case?
Well, I think the biggest thing that I'm seeing is that people are actually taking the time to see, like, where is a good space and where is that proper environment. You don't want it in the main walkway. You need it in a quieter area, but you don't need it in a corner. You want people to see it. So I think people are really paying attention to, you know, having something. And I think it's really important to have it near a table and a place you can sit easily too, wherever you start having a collection. David, did you want to add anything?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. I know one thing Tina and I always talk about is if a person does come into the library and they have dementia, I think I've noticed several people that come in that might have this disease. One thing you have to realize, if a person does come in with the environment, you really need to help them calm and talk about general events like the weather, places, really calm them down. And there's things that we can do as librarians and library staff to really make patrons with dementia feel more welcome in the environment at the library.
Yeah, a lot of the responses we're seeing. Thank you so much for everyone that is responding. We're hearing a lot of the same things. Creating dedicated areas in the library. Someone said the best idea might just be to create a quiet space on your library. A response from Barbara. Barbara says, on the first floor, we have a place with chairs for the patrons and caregivers, not hidden in the corner. I really like that. Someone also asked, Betty asked, is there a list of outside programs / presenters that one could schedule for a memory cafe series? Dave and Tina, do you know anything like that?
I would recommend, Glenna Godinsky. I hope it's okay I mentioned your name, Glenna. She's going to try to be here today. She started up one of the first memory cafes in the area, in the Kane County area. And I'm sure she'd be happy to hear from you. Gail Borden does wonderful work in their senior services, and she would probably be able to point you in the right direction if you're interested in reaching out to her. But there are a lot of great resources to do, and there's a lot of more memory cafes popping up. And definitely look up in Wisconsin. Wisconsin has many libraries who are in a network to do memory cafes. What was the place called, Tina, again, the Wisconsin Memory Project, or?
Yeah, it is the Memory Care Project, and if you just Google Memory Care Project Wisconsin, it'll come right up.
Yep.
Also, I want to say.
So I don't know if there's like a company to hire. Oh, sorry, Dan.
No, go ahead, Tina.
I said I don't know if there's I don't know if there's somebody that you would hire to like put on the series for you. But there's definitely enough resources out there that you could pull something together to have different groups and people come in to facilitate those things.
Yeah.
The one thing we've kind of learned with memory cafes is you want it to be patron focused, and for the patrons with memory loss to really encourage them to evolve. So you don't necessarily need to do a presentation necessarily. Give them a couple themes and topics and let them engage and interact. It's supposed to be really to help the patrons who normally live at home, who might not live in a facility, have a chance to interact and to engage.
That's a good point. We also had another response to this from Sarah. My mother had Alzheimer's. I went to a teacher's aid store, purchased games and activities for someone around pre-K, K in first grade. For example, word and picture matching activities. Also, I want to encourage the audience as well. Feel free to submit your ideas for, presenters and outside programs. If you have suggestions, that's what this is about. We're all trying to sort of crowdsource answers from everyone. In the meantime, I'm going to submit the second question, which is, what tips and tricks do you have for talking, engaging with patrons with dementia? Okay. So in response to that first question, again, we have a response from Becky at Evanston. Chair boxing has been a big hit for memory cafes. Do you two know what chair boxing is? No,
but please tell us more. I'm interested. That's awesome.
Becky, maybe you can maybe you can tell us a little bit more in the chat about what chairboxing is, because I think we're all very curious about that. Okay, Becky also recommends Corey Emberton at Movement Revolution for that question about programs and presentations. Cindy suggests local animal shelters might be interested in bringing in pets for a memory cafe. And also, Glenna did respond. At our Elgin Memory Cafe and Cafe de los Recuerdos in Elgin, rather than hiring presenters, performers for our meetings, we rely on homespun talent. One participant and his daughter had been dancers in the Hiawatha pageant. They shared their personal photo books and videos. Another time, our volunteer piano player from our library did Name That Tune. Another time, our local poet read some of her works. It has a real personal touch, and it honors participants to rely on personal connections / free talent. That's a great point. Okay, Carl reacted to question 2. The question was, what tips and tricks do you have for talking and engaging with patrons? He says, don't correct them, speak calmly. Barbara also says, speak slowly with patron in shortened sentences. David and Tina, do you have any suggestions for question 2?
I think it's super important to pay attention to their body language and to see what state they're in. Doing things like using simple language, doing things as close as you can, really listening to them. And sometimes if they are in a highly agitated state, you might invite them to come sit down and do what you can to get them to calm down. And if they're not in that kind of a state, just using simple language and listening to what they are, making sure that you remain calm, really helps people who have dementia. And the other thing is, a lot of people who have dementia, unless they come forward and they say, hey, this is what I'm dealing with, they might be in all different stages of either denial or paranoia or different things that they go through when they're finding out more about it. So just us being patient with people is really helpful.
Yeah, you want the patron to feel very welcome and want to relax, help them to relax. And the library should be a safe place, and I know that's something we all want our libraries to be, and just to really encourage them just to know they feel welcome. And as Tina said, read the body signs. And I said, there are people I know us all the time who might have memory loss, and just to really encourage them just to feel welcome, and make sure your frontline staff is aware of how to recognize the signs.
Great responses, and we continue to get great responses from participants as well. We got one here. People with dementia will respond to the tone of voice. They may become confrontational, argumentative, or whatever, but you can keep your tone of voice conversational. They may return to just a conversational tone. That's a great point. It sounds like it echoes a lot of what the two of you were saying. Sarah says, don't direct them to an area in the library. Take them to where the item's located that they are asking for. Let's see here. Perhaps they are doing behavior that is harmful to themselves or others. If you can find a way for them to continue that behavior for it to be safe, that is better than trying to get them to stop the behavior. Okay, that's interesting. And then Carl also says, beware of sundowners, where people tend to get more confused in the afternoon. That's very true. That's a great point. I also want to note that we did get response about the chair boxing from Becky. She says, it is great. Participants sit in a semicircle or circle. They lead an exercise program. We do a monthly MC. Each is highly interactive, or some sort of service project. For example, balling plastic yarn for creating mats for the homeless. And she also knows that she's typing on her phone. Becky, we appreciate your participation. That's great. That sounds like a really cool program. I also want to just submit another reaction from Glenna. She says, in communicating with those who have dementia, make sure your responses matches their intensity. So that echoes what we're hearing. If they are urgently trying to communicate with you and you smile back and calmly go, oh, hey, that's going to escalate their frustration. Match your voice to their body and vocal tones and echo back what you can understand. It looks like you need something right away. That's a quote. Now it's up to you to figure out what it is, enlist help from staff who know better than you. It takes a village. So that's a great point as well. Good responses, everybody. Keep them coming. Thank you so much. David and Tina, I know I read about 10 million of them right there. Anything that stuck out to you?
I know what Glenn said. You want
Well,
to
I know one of the things people talk about. Go ahead, David.
No, I said one thing is you want to keep them, as Glenn said, you want to keep them on the same level. So you don't want to get louder. You want to calm them down. So softer, more welcoming. You don't want to escalate the situation.
Right, and one of the other things that we hear a lot, though, is, sometimes staff become agitated because people keep asking the same questions, or it might be the same day, it might be the next time, but the problem is people keep asking the same questions, and our patience at that point just really needs to kick in with these people. So patience is a really big idea.
Another reaction from Cindy. Cindy says, finding great success with sensory items, doing rainforest program this month, bringing rain sticks for the patrons. Even typically unresponsive patrons are engaging with the sound of rain sticks. Looking for more sensory projects ideas. Do either one of you have you ever, first of all, Tina and David, either one of you ever done rain sticks before? Is this something you've used, or any ideas beyond that? Any ideas for other sensory project ideas?
At the St. Charles Public Library, we've done a fidget quilt project, which incorporates like manipulative items, bells, buttons, beads, and we have the community support help develop these and craft these. And then 2 years ago, in December 2017, we delivered about 50 to local memory care and skilled care facilities, and it was very exciting. And I've worked a lot with Glenna on that as well. And also another project we did is sensory pouches. And sensory pouches are basically a Ziploc bag, and you line the edges with colorful duct tape, and you put in hair gel, which is cooling to the touch, and then other manipulatives as well. Make sure you don't pierce the bag. That's something we found. But again, we delivered those to local skilled care and memory care facilities. And if you just Google fidget quilts and sensory pouches, articles come right up about that. So.
Great. Okay, I'm going to submit the question 3, but in the meantime, if you still wanted to, if people still want to respond to question 2, that's available to you. I do recommend, if you respond to something, please include the number in it, just so I can keep an eye on, just so I know which question you're responding to. I have question 3, I have Q3 in front of question 3. If you want to put like A3 or even Q3 in front of your third response, that's great. The third question is, how do you manage due dates? That should be collection management, not selection management. And material loss. So while people are still typing, I got a great response from Glenna. Singing works well with a group or individual. When you choose a song, everyone would know. Take Me Out to the Ball Game. Very, very, very appropriate for the White Sox home opener today. Or, for example, for We Are Jolly Good Fellows. That's a good one. The brain center that retains music and memories is usually not damaged by dementia and stroke. So many people enjoy singing, and it helps them breathe or sit up straighter. Meredith, your question, I can't see audience responses. Do I need to adjust the setting? No. Unfortunately, audience with GoToMeeting, the chat, audience cannot see the other audience responses. Unfortunately, that's why I'm reading them aloud. So if you do have a response, I'll try to communicate it as best to Tina and David as I can. But I'm trying. Okay, so let's see here. Lavanna says, she responded positively about the comments about music. So that seems to be pretty positive. While we're waiting for people to respond, David, Tina, can you give some examples? Tina, maybe you can start. Maybe you can give some examples of how you manage due dates, collection management, material loss.
So in general, when we go into like an assisted living facility and we're checking out materials, we base if someone does get further along with dementia where they're just not bringing materials back, then those are the people we stop checking out regular library materials to, but we'll bring donations or magazines or things for them so that they still feel included and they still feel that they have something. Some people just want to come in and communicate with you and walk out with a flyer. So there's that. So it becomes a very personalized type of situation where some people love the reading and maybe they have a caretaker or somebody who is going to help get those materials back, and you don't have to worry about material loss and things. When we go into the facilities especially, you know, we have great people that we partner with that work there and make sure that our materials are coming back so we do not have a high loss. But I know the question becomes when you're at the library, what happens? And people have been talking about, you know, should there be a procedure in place or something so that when you know someone has dementia? And the conversation we've had is, well, how do you deal with that in any situation? If someone was in a hospital or you know somebody has different difficulties and things, how do you handle that? So I think it's opening a bigger conversation for people as we progress down the road for people who are having memory issues. We have a couple of people who we treat them as a home delivery person, even though they sometimes are able to come into the library. It becomes more of a situation where, you know, it's because they're going to maybe need a longer due date or something along those lines to help with their memory, and it becomes a more personalized situation. So that's what we do.
I would definitely recommend having a lot of libraries have you, again, as Tina mentioned, donated materials, or when things you're withdrawing from the collection, especially large print books, can be used, and you can have a collection to bring to patrons living with memory loss at memory care facilities, or house a collection, like a deposit collection at senior facilities, especially memory care facilities where patrons can come browse and help themselves. That's another thing that libraries can do.
Thank you both. We have got some great responses. Kelly says, we let patrons have materials for 3 weeks, but we really let them have materials for however long they want. That's really nice. Barbara says, if you have a forgetful patron, give them donated items to take and keep. And then Winona also says, within our home delivery program, which she manages, I call each patron a day or two before the home delivery date for drop-off and pickup, which helps to remind the patrons to bring their books down to the pickup point. That's also very nice. Please continue to submit some great responses. Cindy says, our children's librarians, wow, I just had about 5 responses show up. Our children's librarian gives me materials she has weeded from our children's collection. That's great. Glenna says at Gil Borden in Elgin, we give a lot of donated materials out each month, and a nice surprise has been that senior communities are now encouraging families to donate materials back to us as they downsize family members' homes when they move into care communities. That is great. Okay, Lavanna says, she's responding to the comment about the music program. I do a program at nursing homes and adult daycares called Walk with a Friend. I begin with very familiar songs to pull groups together. I find that once they are engaged in singing along with me, they are more ready to engage with the rest of the program. That's a good point. The second part of the program, I read aloud from classic literature. Tom Sawyer, To Kill a Mockingbird, The Old Man and the Sea, The Secret Garden, etc. We finish with an imaginary walk together. That's great. Okay, that's a great answer. I appreciate that. It is the music that holds the whole program together. I really like that. That's great. David and Tina, any thoughts on anything, any of the responses that you've heard?
Great work being done, everybody. You guys are doing phenomenal work. It's great.
Absolutely. And, and music programs are always really big with this community because we know that music reaches people at all different stages of dementia longer than any other type of thing. So incorporating music into any program that you do will definitely help people. So.
One thing to do is definitely make sure you print out the words sometimes. And one thing when we're making handouts for any of your programs, you make it 16-point font, single-sided. At St. Charles, we have a holiday sing-along in 2 of our skilled care centers with library staff. And music is such an important part. And as a lot of the times when we're doing music, we play a YouTube video with the singer. And again, these songs are so popular in a meaningful time of their lives that they might not have heard the song for 20, 30, 40 years. So it really helps inspire reminiscence and engagement. So.
We had a question.
It's a good point. We try to find.
Go ahead. Go ahead, Tina.
David brought up a good point. YouTube is a great resource for showing, a song, because it's not just listening to the song. Maybe it's, the original person who sang it on Lawrence Welk's show or something along those lines. That engages them so much more too. So if you're in a facility or in the library where you can play something like that, or have some of the older DVDs that showcase those really engage them too.
We had a question, and I believe the question is from another response that came via text. It says, can you describe how to do an imaginary walk? So I'll let that person respond, and I'll read the response out loud as soon as she has it. And then it says, another question to another person who was texting. For the woman who calls every patron before pickup of materials, how many patrons is she delivering to? So those are both great questions. I will be sure to read the responses once they're out there. In the meantime, I'm going to, just to keep things along, we have about 15 minutes left. I have the next question. The next question is question 4. How can we offer assistance to those who are struggling? And I think that's a really interesting question that I think we're going to hear responses from. Please feel free to continue to respond to question 3. How do you manage due dates, collection management, and material loss? In the meantime, and also again, I will try to read responses to other questions. I wish that people could respond directly instead of me having to do this, but that's how we're doing it. So. Okay, so Winona says, regarding calling patrons, and this is question 3, I have approximately 65 patrons I call every other week. Phone calls usually take about 90 minutes of my off-desk time. Okay, so that's a pretty big commitment. Thomas says, are there other therapies beside music that work with groups like art therapy? David and Tina, maybe that's something you two can react to. Do you know of other forms of therapies?
Definitely pet therapy.
Absolutely. A lot of the things that have been talked about already, the sensory pouches or the sensory quilts, doing some simple crafts. It depends on the level of the person that you're dealing with, but anything where they can use any of their senses is going to be good. I know with the kits that we use from White Oak, they are based on making sure that all of the senses are in some way, shape, or form engaged, because in that way you'll hit different people with different things. Being able to read, whether it's a short story, a poem, that speaks to a lot of people. But crafts and music are certainly, any of those things really are good with them too.
That's exactly. I agree definitely with Tina. Also incorporating pets. There are stuffed animals are very good for engagement. We use something called memorable pets, which are designed for patrons with memory loss. If you just search memorable pets, that comes up. And we use those especially for end-of-life care at our skilled care centers. One thing that's really worked is short animal stories from a book called Unlikely Friendships. There's just something about animals that really helped connect with patrons, and we've had a lot of success with that, especially the last couple of months and the last couple of years with the memorable pets.
Great responses. Okay, thank you to you both. People are reacting to question 4. Carrie says, at the Dundee Library just started a 6-month family caregiver series. Barbara says, promote dementia groups, put on your community bulletin boards, try your local hospital, great suggestions. Carrie, someone also said put on flyers to put on bulletin boards. Please continue to respond to that question. In the meantime, Carrie also has a question for you, David and Tina. Are your kits available for other libraries to borrow?
Ours are not. It's just for St. Charles staff, St. Charles outreach staff to use. But if you go to our blog that we mentioned, there's examples, there's handouts of the kits, or feel free to reach out to Tina and me for more information. But there's so many libraries doing memory kits, so thank you for asking that. But we're hoping, we'd love for another manufacturer to make kits, but at this time, unfortunately, it's really up to us libraries to develop them, unless you have bifocal kits already.
And with the white oak kits, what we're working on right now is refining the ones that we built last year. And once they're refined, we will be able to loan them out to people too. So hopefully next year is the goal.
All right, thank you both.
The other thing, I'm hoping Glenna is going to say something about other things you can do to help patrons who are struggling. A lot of passive type of programming and things help, but there is a wave in libraries where they want people to sign up to be a dementia-friendly community or dementia-friendly library. And I know Glenna is one of those libraries, and there's a bunch of other ones too. And as the wave hits the nation, where people want you to be aware and be more dementia-friendly, there is actually something called a dementia-friendly library, and so that is something to look into if you're really interested. And how are we offering assistance, being able to provide support groups, memory care, but the different programming. I think all those things help support those who are struggling.
We always like to say, what any effort you make to serve this population truly makes a difference in your community, for your patrons' lives, and for programming. At St. Charles, I said sometimes we just have 1 or 2 patrons doing an individual program, or you might have 40 at a big group program. I remember, no matter how big your audience is or how many people you're reaching, you're truly making a difference in an individual's life, living with memory loss, and for your community. So that's important to remember as well.
Thank you for that. In the meantime, so going back to the answer about the imaginary walk, we got a response to that. The walk works once the group is fully engaged with me. Through the entire program, I make a lot of eye contact, address people with their first names, interact with them as personally as possible. By the end of the program, I have them fully engaged with me and reacting to me with their voices, singing along, but I also encourage body movements during the reading and poetry sections. When we get to the walk, I have them move their feet with me. I describe in detail where they are going, what they are seeing. I assign them tasks during the walk. So that sounds like a really cool thing. Also, Glenna did respond. Thank you so much, Glenna. She says, in regards to art therapy, at Gil Borden, we do a community art project. At each program we give, it takes about 20 to 30 minutes. At the end of the hour-long program, we have a completed art piece that can go on display. Examples are a paper quilt that was inspired by Kandinsky's 1913 color study. She says it's super easy, trust me. We do kites, drink coasters, placemats, and even made cotton ball snowballs and had a snowball fight. Anything you can think of, they will enjoy. Just keep it simple. That's awesome. And she also notes some dementia-friendly ideas. Offer a no shushing movie that welcomes all who cannot attend at a typical theater. Oh, that's great. Keep lights partially up, provide wheelchair and walker and stroller space, allow audience to bring their own light snacks and covered drinks. So really, really good stuff. And then also, so Lavanna said, for example, during the winter walk, we go sledding, we dress, quote unquote, before we go out. Some bring hot chocolate, some cups, etc. We build an imaginary fire, make imaginary s'mores. We sled down the hill, look at the hawk and the trees. I conduct the walk, but also follow their lead during it. That sounds really nice. That sounds so so welcoming and friendly. It sounds like there are a lot of examples of people doing things just to make make everyone feel comfortable, which is awesome.
That's wonderful. I really like that.
We have 10 minutes left, so I'm going to submit the fifth question. I'm not sure if we're going to get to all of our questions today, but you've all done a fantastic job responding. Keep it up. The fifth question is, how do we work with patrons so that they still feel like people? And the example are just kind of like training staff is an example there. David and Tina, any other responses to how to offer assistance to those struggling? Question 4 while people are responding to question 5. Any loose ends you want to tie up in regards to that question?
I think one thing that we have to remember, especially with patrons, is you have to remember that they are a person with dementia. To treat them like an adult, not like a child. They are a person, that they're an adult, and just, yeah, that's something really to remember when you're working with that population.
And I was just going to mention, if you are finding that you're dealing with a high population and that your staff needs some training, many times your local assisted living memory care places will work with your staff, and they can even do something, I can't remember what it's called, David, if you remember, or somebody in the audience does, where they'll come in and show you what it's like to be someone who has dementia, so that people grow some empathy towards the population, so that they understand a little bit more from the other person's point of view. So if you are finding the staff need that type of training, there is something like that out there for people too.
That's great. We have some.
And the one thing I wanted to make sure we mentioned, Dan,
Yep.
is if we are talking about a resource that people do not see on our blog, if they could get David and I the information so we can add these resources out there for people, that would be awesome.
Yeah, definitely. So we do. That's a great point. We do. If you look in the handout section of this presentation, there is the handout, and I believe it has both of your email addresses on it. Is that right? I think it does. I'm pretty sure I saw it in there. So I won't scroll back right now for the PowerPoint. Okay, and they can reach out to you there as well. And if you're looking for contact information, you can also look in the networking group directory, Rails networking group directory, and more information about the group is there, so you can connect with them that way. In the meantime, a couple responses have already come in for question 5. Carrie says, always speak respectfully, make eye contact, smile. Cindy says, always respond to a patron's repeated comments or questions as if it is the first time you heard it. That's great. Sarah says, find out where they are in life, for example, what year, and talk to them in their current time frame. That's a good one. Let's see here. Vanna says, definitely as adults, keep yourself focused on your natural role for this person. Do not react to their current behavior or voice. Focus your reaction on your role in their life. Cindy says, can't hear. Cindy, can you hear us? Okay. All right. Well, also, Sarah said this would be a good program for Pug Day. Yeah, for sure. Definitely. That's a great suggestion. Pug Day is the Prairie Cat Users Group, and I know that they're always looking for ideas like this. David, or actually Tina, let's start with you. How do you treat patrons so that they still feel like people? What's an example of something that they you tell people or explain to staff members?
I think one of the biggest things outside of everything else we've already said is you be gentle and you agree with them and you try to be the positive, the calm. And, like we've said, you be patient, you repeat yourself, You just go with whatever they're going with, and then that's the best way to handle that.
When we're at facilities doing programming, we always try to refrain from saying, do you remember? Because most of the time they don't remember, and it's a frustrating experience for them. So rephrase the question to, we always say, like, what was your favorite? Or who sang with this person? So always try not to say, do not say, do you remember? Because it can be kind of, it's very a frustrating experience for them. We also incorporate, different themes just to really make the theme it's about inclusive and giving them respect, giving them their dignity. Because they're still people who with dementia. So
great. We also got a question here from Sarah, who says, will we be able to get a copy of the responses to your questions? And yes, you will be able to get a copy of it. I'm going to try to save that in some format. It'll probably be like a PDF that I will send to all the participants and people who registered as well, so that you can read it instead of having to listen to my voice read all the answers. Glenna responded for question 5 as well. Not sure if it's just our audience is in Elgin, but people feel like they really enjoy it when we give facts that they have a bit of Ripley's Believe It or Not or world record-breaking facts. They like things outside the box. Anything that stretches their thinking. Did you know that the first bridge over Niagara Gorge was started with a $5 kite flying contest in 1847? A kite made it across, a rope was attached to that, a cable was attached to that, and voila, a bridge was built, all because of a kite. They love discussing their favorites from back in the day, favorite singer, favorite actor, first album they ever purchased, etc. Really good tips. Those are great. Thank you so much for that, Glenna. That's really interesting. Also, we can all go forward on our Friday with the fact that we now know that the first Niagara Bridge was built in 1847. Katie says, in answer to question 5, we like to give everyone who wants to chat a few minutes extra of our time. Several homebound residents tend to be lonely. We like to make them feel wanted. That's great. We only have a few other minutes, so I'm going to give people like 2 more minutes to respond to stuff. Glenna says, you're welcome. This has been really fun and helpful. Thank you, Glenna. I'm sorry that we haven't gotten to all of our questions. I feel like we got to 5, which is great. Let's start with David. David, before we start to kind of move to wrap this thing up, do you have any reactions, any things that you wanted to make sure people knew or had an idea about?
Again, it's wonderful. Thank you, Dan and Rails, for hosting this. It's such a great, important topic that we're working with. As the population continues to age, this is something we need to start thinking about how to serve this population. So kudos to all of you for the great work you are doing to serve this demographic. Because this is something that libraries need to realize that this is happening, and how do we serve this population of seniors, especially those living with memory loss. So great work, everybody.
Tina, anything to add?
No, I think hopefully people will continue the conversation and people will join us when we do have the networking meetings, so that we do find out new resources and be able to share and network. So thank you, everybody. Thank you, Dan.
Thank you, Dan.
Well, I want to say a huge thank you to David and to Tina and the entire Serving Patrons with Dementia Group. They've been fantastic, reacting to the questions, giving the questions, which is awesome. I hope everybody had something to take away. And thank you to everyone who just came and submitted ideas. That's what this is all about. We know your communities are different. We know that your patrons are different. So you might have something that works in your library that other people don't, and we really appreciate it. With that, I'm going to wrap it up. I just, again, want to say thank you to everyone for participating. I would love your feedback on how this worked. It's the first time we've ever done it, so if you have any reaction to it, please send me an email. Again, you're going to get a reaction. You'll get a an archived version of this. We will archive this after we're done, and also try to archive the text going forward. So thanks again. I hope everyone has a great weekend, and thank you for doing all the great things that you do in your libraries.